So I would like to start with my philosophy on foliage. The truth is, I never want to bother with foliage. I want to create beautiful flowers and do the glamorous thing. But I kind of got fed up with my leaves all looking the same everywhere on all my arrangements, and I just thought, let's get your teeth into it. And it turned out to be quite a lot of hassle, really, for what it's worth. So I was feeling a little bit hard done by having to do all the research and all the experiments on something as unimportant as the leaf. But as it turned out, the beauty is in detail. I'm very happy I took the time. So here I've cut it out freehand, and now I'm correcting it. You could just do your own pattern and save your own time. Now when you get the wire in, make sure you use edible glue. I don't have edible glue on show here, but I did actually use it. And make sure you don't use too much of it because it's just going to get in the way. Now this one is serrated edge of a leaf, and you could go and buy yourself a cutter. But again, leaves come in a huge variety, so if you're gonna end up buying cutter for each of them, you're just gonna spend too much money. And there's many people who make flowers, increasingly so, are just hobbyists who do it for fun, for the art of it, for Instagram, whatever, or just beginners and don't earn a lot of money, or don't earn a lot of money, not being beginners, all the variety. Try to find a way of making your life cheaper, because trying to be inventive and not buying expensive stuff doesn't mean you're not going to come out with a nice result. When you take your leaf out of the veinner, and if you don't like dusting it too much, especially, sometimes you find that your wire picks through because the leaf is too thin. You try to keep it as thin as possible, or because it kind of bent, unfortunately. And what you can do, you could just pinch it together and mend it and get it back without having to rewire it. If it's for competition, yes, by all means, get perfectionist. But if you're just starting, or if you're not just starting but just want to go and do more interesting things, perhaps pick your battle with being perfectionist, because sometimes being perfectionist in everything could just kind of put you off. So yeah, that's just my philosophy on that, perfectionism. So yeah, just before this I was trying out something on my palette, my color, and now I'm just doing the very first layer, and that layer being basically just to show up the pattern of my leaf. I just cover it all, and by keeping the brush flat I'm avoiding getting anything into the veins. And I'm doing a second layer of the same color, but I just follow alongside to kind of show the shape of the whole leaf as opposed to the texture of the leaf. Because by now my leaf is darker all around, you see the edges seem to have disappeared, so I am going to take yet darker a color and reinforce the edges again to make them look okay. So my point here being, you don't have to follow step by step and then feel lost if your steps with your dust or whatever you have available aren't adding up, because for example the base that you use may be slightly different, or whatever. So just remember, have the general idea how to get all this dust together, and the principle of contrast that I use and what I use for highlight to give it a bit of 3D, etc. But do feel free to kind of deviate from the main principle and just add things of your own as you feel comfortable. I mean, it does come with experience, I must admit. It doesn't just click and play. But I think it does help to kind of keep in mind that, of course, every artist is different. Every person has their own taste, their own experiences, their own temperaments. So yeah, just use kind of these ideas as a guide, and then apply your own materials, etc., etc. So what I'm trying to do with this leaf is that I'm trying to find a balance between there being a contrast within the colors of the leaf, and yet it not being looking a little bit artificial. You know, like you sometimes see this cheap fabric flowers in supermarkets and stuff. So I keep applying and blending layers, alternating between the actual green, then the dust for the veins, and then the paint for the veins. And if I don't like the way paint looks, I'm gonna put the dust over it and more or less start all over again. It's not been an endless chain of events here. It's only about 4 or 5 layers all together, and that's why I'm labeling layer 1, layer 2, etc. But yeah, just you know, alternate, soften, and then add a bit of paint until you see the result and you think, oh, it looks quite nice, because you know, some people like it looking less dramatic and some people like it looking more dramatic as well. And you know, this is a close-up. Obviously on your arrangement no one's gonna look at it quite as close up, so the leaf is going to look prettier than it looks on a complete close-up without any glaze or anything. By the way, if you've been reading the little captions that I keep leaving, you've noticed that I steamed it once, then added little veins and then steamed it again, and that's absolutely fine. You know, you just can invent your own things as you go along, as well as following other people's advice. Just experiment, you know. I really like that trick. I thought it added to them being realistic. Now I'm going to do something unusual after I've covered these little stems with a flower tape. I normally cover things with flower tape because I don't use green wire, and I like to color it. Also I want them to be a little bit thicker, and also I want them to stick together. It's just easier to arrange and assemble later. However, I'm going to show you something interesting. Now, the stem covered in flower wire is not edible, and neither it's called porcelain, so I think it's perfectly fine to add a little bit of cold porcelain onto your stem to complement your fully your edible, kind of edible sugar paste, because you know your flower wire isn't edible. So I've touched on this one somewhat on fern, so if you want to hear me ramble about it more, watch my fern video. So yeah, this is glazing, and it looks really beautiful to start with, and then it fades. If you glaze it a couple of times with undiluted glaze, it would be very shiny, but although non-shiny leaves don't photograph as well, they actually look more natural. So in this case I'm following the botanical, you know, resemblance. And with this, it's time for us to part our company again. Thank you very much for being part of my audience and watching this video. Give a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see some more. I will see you next Thursday with a new tutorial. Have a lovely weekend.